I'm confident that I'm building something that I want to use myself. It's the future of DeFi, in my opinion. It's golden. A fully decentralized swap exchange on Bitcoin and a fully decentralized NFT marketplace, Defi.Gold. You can build other things on top of it, and it becomes the base layer for doing DeFi on any blockchain.
If you can crack this, then this is the holy grail. Can you explain to people why that's so important?
Because you're dealing with Bitcoin, the most secure, the most decentralized network. All these things make it the perfect platform for anything related to finance.
Is anyone else out there close to doing what you do?
No, because everybody else is focused on their own tribe. We're saying we don't care about you guys, we care about the audience and what people want, and we're just the developers of it. So it's really for the community to decide how it's going to evolve.
When will I be able to get yield on my Bitcoin on your platform?
In Q4, we're launching a network that gives you a decentralized database that Bitcoin scripts can access by a method called discrete log contracts. You won't be earning yield as more Defi-Gold, you'll actually be earning yield in Bitcoin, which is great.
To the 18-year-old that's out there watching us, listening to us, what is your advice to them?
If you have a passion to do something, you need to go out there and do it. If you're the type of person that just wants security, there is no such thing as security. You have to take that risk, don't be afraid. If you fail, it's not the end of the world. You just have to get right back up. It's the one who doesn't get back up that's the loser at the end of the
day. The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go? This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Shidan Gouran, the serial entrepreneur, blockchain expert, and venture capitalist. You are the co-founder and chairman of Bluesphere Ventures, a pioneering incubator with a focus on environmental, energy, and decentralized technologies. Your latest venture, Defi.Gold, is a decentralized exchange for Bitcoin-based tokens and NFTs, which is paving the way for innovation by providing a seamless trading environment for Bitcoin-native assets. You believe that with Bitcoin's security and decentralization, money can evolve to become more open and equitable, bringing more freedom to the world. You've said now more than ever, we need a resilient alternative to traditional financial systems, and that Web3 offers everyone the opportunity to be part of this new financial revolution. Shidan, welcome to London Real.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
It's great to have you here. Yeah. I just want to start by saying that Defi.Gold is one of our portfolio companies here at London Real Ventures, the world's first media-powered investment firm. Our mission is to transform the world by investing in cutting-edge Web3 and AI companies while giving our partners marketing exposure across the London Real media platforms and academies. We heighten awareness, create customers, and build communities by leveraging our global audience and extensive network. Shidan, we're super excited to be part of this journey with you with Defi.Gold. So let's jump in. You recently said, quote, "I'm advocating to every Web3 venture to reconsider Bitcoin as the prime network for dApps. Many don't realize that with recent advancements, any dApp possible on an EVM chain can now be developed on Bitcoin itself," unquote. That's a bold statement. I'd love for you to jump into that and maybe tell us more about Defi.Gold.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah. So I thought it was a very bold statement about a year ago. And if somebody had come to me and told me, you can do anything you can on Ethereum on Bitcoin now, I would have been very skeptical, and I was. And a year ago, something happened though. I was talking to some of the guys from Blockstream, who are one of the lead developers of the Bitcoin protocol and its software. And we were arguing about whether ordinals are good for the community or not. I said, well, they're very good, and you can see there's a demand for them, and this creates deep value for the network. And to my surprise, they didn't disagree that such things are necessarily not good for Bitcoin. You know how maxis are.
Yeah.
You'd assume they're against it. But they told me there's better technologies. And they pointed me to two technologies, Taproot assets and RGB, which they told me that them and their partners were actually working on as well and supporting to a degree. So that got me really excited, and I went and did my research, and what I realized very fast is that Bitcoin was gaining the abilities of building very sophisticated smart contracts and doing things that were not possible before. And after doing some R&D, putting a team together to research it, it became very obvious that this was the future of Bitcoin, and the demand was there. You could see what was happening with ordinals. So we put a team together, some of the earliest software developers in the blockchain space that I had met, from very early on, and who had funded in other projects. And we set out to build, what is possible today, or in the near future, we were thinking a year ago, in the space. And what we decided to build was a swap exchange, a fully decentralized swap exchange on Bitcoin, and a fully decentralized NFT marketplace on Bitcoin. Because when you have that, you can build other things on top of it, and it becomes the base layer really for doing DeFi on any blockchain. And that's where we are.
And so no layer 2 involved.
So there is a layer 2 for Bitcoin called the Lightning Network. And these technologies actually do work over the Lightning Network. Now we're a DEX that supports runes, Taproot assets, and RGB, 3 different protocols for fungible tokens. And we support ordinals and Taproot assets and RGB for NFTs as well. Most of these are actually possible over the Lightning Network, with the exception of potentially ordinals. And that's one of the innovations we as a company are working to bring to this space, the ability to transact all these assets over the Lightning.
Do you think in the future you might integrate some of these Bitcoin layer 2 solutions that are coming out there? Or do you have big questions about their security, et cetera?
It's just not needed. Why do it when you have Bitcoin, really?
Okay.
I'm against layer 2s in general. Even for Bitcoin, for Ethereum, I think it's hurt the Ethereum ecosystem more than it's added to it. Because you have, a lot of friction moving from one layer 2 to another. It just adds complexity. And at the end of the day, these L2s don't really need Ethereum that much if they grow large enough to secure themselves. And they are, really. On the other hand, you have blockchains like Solana and the Telegram Open Network that are doing it the way I would have done it myself, which is by introducing sharding technologies and having just one layer, really.
Okay.
And that, I think, is an alternative. But if you're doing it as a layer 2, the way Bitcoin is doing it with the Lightning Network and now a new technology called Fediment is a lot more realistic, in my opinion.
Okay. Tell me about Lightning, because the maxis have been talking about it for years, but some people say it hasn't been the success everyone expected. I don't know that much about it. I just know I've never used it. But obviously you're embracing this technology and it seems to be working really well for what you're doing. Can you address some of the pluses and minuses, or maybe the press that Lightning has had?
Lightning has one real deficiency, and it's very complex. So you can never run your own node. You will always need a third party to run it because you have to monitor it at all times to make sure you're not losing your funds. It introduces custodians to the system. I don't think that's that big of a deal. There are other solutions that are nicer, in my opinion, but the Bitcoin community hasn't embraced it. You go with what's there. And the Lightning Network is there. It works. It works in a custodial sense. And, that's why we're betting on it. When Lightning came out, I always thought it was very much hype when they said, this was in 2016, when they said the next couple of years, everyone's going to be using it. I'm skeptical by nature. So when I hear about new technologies, I like to do my research and really see where it's at. Lightning, I always knew was too early. It's just becoming usable now. You're seeing wallets and the infrastructure there after almost 10 years of people working on it. These new technologies, RGB and Taproot, are not like that. They're actually very easy to use, and the technology is there today for people like ourselves to innovate on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was at the Satoshi Roundtable event in February in Dubai. It was my first roundtable. I got to meet Bruce Fenton. I actually interviewed him on the show. And I met some incredible people there, a lot of them OGs in the space, a lot of them OG Bitcoiners, and some that are your partners on Defi.Gold as well, which is probably one of the reasons we really wanted to be a part of this project, because I was really impressed with their deep experience, their reputations in this space. But I attended a bunch of the roundtable events at this unconference is what it's called. Yeah. And again, for people that don't know, it's like a 4 or 5 day event. It's invite only. There's no media allowed. We're not even allowed to disclose the location. And if you're there, you're usually somebody. And it's an incredible place to exchange ideas. And I was super impressed. And a lot of the conversations that I attended, probably 25% of the roundtables were about building on Bitcoin. And I sat in on BRC20 pieces. I sat in on a bunch of different discussions. And I met a bunch of people in the space and a few of the people we even invested in. And I came to the conclusion that the BRC20 technology still wasn't ready, and maybe it never will be. I heard runes being mentioned at the time that it was coming, but it wasn't clear to me that anyone had figured out how to build on Bitcoin itself, because it's obviously doesn't have smart contracts, wasn't really designed for any of this. Yes, ordinals had expressed a lot of interest in here, but those were maybe a meme coin in Ordi, maybe some ordinals, but there were no necessarily tokens or liquidity. And DeFi, from what I saw, seemed to still be a long way away. Yeah. And that's why I asked you some hard questions before we invested. And I said, this is the holy grail. I mean, if you can crack this and put it on the most decentralized, the most reliable, the most censorship resistant, network in the world, which is Bitcoin, and do all the things that DeFi does, which we know is needed by people, then you've cracked the code. And I hadn't heard of anyone able to do that without a layer 2. And I remember that's what I asked you, like, how could you guys do it? And I'm just curious, your thoughts on what I experienced at Satoshi, even my take on this. Was I getting some of that right? Or had I not just looked at some other solutions like you had?
It's the holy grail. That's absolutely correct, in my opinion as well.
Can you explain to people why that's so important?
Why it's important? Because you're dealing with the blockchain that's the most secure, the most decentralized. It wasn't created by a bunch of parties who have a huge advantage over you. And it's the most uncensorable network as well. All these things add, and the security is more than any other blockchain. All these things make it the perfect platform for anything related to finance, right? DeFi, tokens, games, the metaverse, the open metaverse, all these things would be great if you could do them on Bitcoin. Bitcoin became very uninteresting to me. So crypto in general did, by the way. I got into the space around 2011. I pretty much left it in 2018 because I just didn't think it was headed where I really wanted it to go.
With the ICO boom, did that get a bad taste in your mouth and you thought, this isn't going where I wanted it to go?
No, I thought the ICO boom was amazing. I was a very early, benefactor of that whole space, right? I just didn't think there was going to be another, 10,000, 50,000% opportunity in my life, right? And I was just interested in other things. Bitcoin changes all of that, because if you can actually do all these things on Bitcoin, that opportunity comes back. That, getting that, massive surge of interest in this space, not just by businesses, countries, everybody could tremendously benefit by this. And a lot of capital can flow in if you can turn Bitcoin into something useful and more than just digital gold. It's the only blockchain that has the adoption that it has. That's why it's so amazing. And that's what brought me back, right? So last year, I put all my attention and focus pretty much on crypto again and the blockchain space. Over the past little while, since 2018, I started investing more in renewable energy, esports, things like that, right? Those were the two areas I was investing most in. Now I'm back into crypto because the thought of actually being able to do these things on Bitcoin, a truly decentralized network, is more exciting than anything that I've seen in crypto in a long time. We're now back to 2015, where Bitcoin was very interesting, and people were, fighting and disagreeing about whether Bitcoin should be useful beyond just being digital gold. Now you can do it. So we're full in.
What do you make of my observations at the roundtable when I heard people talking about BRC20s, and Stacks was there, but it wasn't launched yet as a layer 2. And people were talking about these partial transactions on Bitcoin to try to hack in and make them do DeFi. And I mean, there's some smart people there. And I have a tech background. I wouldn't call myself a tech person. But when I put it all together, I was like, I don't see these guys figuring this out. Or it just didn't seem like this was going to happen.
BRC20 and ordinals, by the way, Defi.Gold supports BRC20 and ordinals, but I don't really believe them in them as technologies. They're not scalable, and they will never work on a mass scale, really, on a global scale when everybody gets into it. And you can't build smart contracts with them or anything like that. The technology behind those has been known in the Bitcoin space forever, actually. People mistakenly believe it was a new creation. It's just nobody wanted to do it before. And, it's not the right way to do things. These new technologies are the right way to go about it. And more than that, even those teams that I mentioned, Blockstream and Lightning Labs, they're actually adding, they're now discussing adding the old opcodes, the old operations you could do with Bitcoin back to Bitcoin and adding the concept of gas into Bitcoin. They even realize and now acknowledge that Bitcoin being useful for more than digital gold is very, very important. And that's a new initiative. So it's become very exciting again.
Okay. Runes have launched, and they were supposed to be the alternative or the substitution or the evolution of, say, BRC20. They launched in a bang. They launched on the halving. I don't know if they've been the success everyone expected. I think they were expected to be the protocol where tokens could be traded, et cetera. What is your thoughts on Runes? Will that be the future, or is that just one of many things that you want to support?
No, I don't really believe Runes will be the future. I think they're not scalable either. I think they're very important today because a lot of interest is on them and also a lot of people are aware of them. They're not aware of these new technologies. So for us to support Runes is very important, and we do. Even our own token, we're actually launching on as a Runes. Okay. But they don't scale, and they're very similar, again, to older technologies like colored coins, which have been around forever. And actually one of my previous partners, co-created that whole system. And systems like Counterparty and Omni that Tether, like for example, originally launched on. They use very similar technologies as well. We know that it won't scale, but these new technologies do.
Okay.
And one thing I should mention, Tether is actually relaunching on Bitcoin again, and it's relaunching on the RGB network. Their team, the team at Bitfinex, is actually now the lead developer, in my opinion, on the RGB protocol. Okay.
I haven't heard much about RGB. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah, so RGB allows you to take programming languages, fully Turing complete programming languages like Rust, for example, and build smart contracts with them. So it brings a lot of the power of Ethereum to the Bitcoin blockchain. Not quite all of it. There's still things you can't do on Bitcoin that you can on Ethereum, because Ethereum can act as a database that holds previous transactions that people can reference programmatically. With Bitcoin, that's still difficult, that part. But there is enough there now that you can build tokens, you can build DAOs, you can build decentralized exchanges, you can build NFTs. And the stuff that you can't build, the truth is, even on Ethereum, they're not very scalable. It's more hype than reality, even on Ethereum. So most of what we consider DeFi today will be possible on Bitcoin as well.
Okay. So you'll launch your token as a Rune.
We will.
But that token might also evolve into something else in 100%, the future.
Yeah.
It will. Okay.
I believe it will. We're going to be running this as a DAO. So people will be able to vote to upgrade it to a new token. And I certainly hope that as Bitcoin scales more and people realize the value of these technologies, they will go with the most scalable technology for Defi.Gold as well. We don't own Defi.Gold. It's an open community. It's owned as a DAO. It's a commons, and we're just the developers of it. So it's really for the community to decide how it's going to evolve.
Okay. Let's talk about that, because you guys thought very deeply on how you wanted to set this up. You created, I think, 42 million of these tokens, which I guess is a nod to the 21 million, Bitcoin, but maybe you can talk on that. How did you decide to set it up? Even the way that you are offering the tokens to the public is quite novel and revolutionary. That's really a community-focused way, I think, of launching these. which is the opposite of the way so many protocols have been launched in the last couple of years. Maybe they're thinking more about the treasury or, the founders or the investors. So how is Defi.Gold set up? And then how could you explain that even to the layman?
Yeah, so if any of your audience has used the site pump.fun or looked at it, which is, where all these meme coins are being launched, we're building something very similar as that as well, that is completely decentralized on again, Bitcoin. So how that works is you have a bonding curve, which is, a curve that as you buy more, it gets more expensive over time to buy it. So it starts at a certain price and then it goes up, and that kind of pumps it naturally. And again, as you said, this is not something we own. When you launch a token on the platform, you're doing it. You can set it so that people participated in it in a fair launch way, that everybody has an opportunity to buy it with you, not you selling it to them necessarily. And it can be a lot of fun. And again, I believe that opportunity for people to make a lot of money from a little bit of money, that idea of Bitcoin being a gambling network is not a negative. It actually puts a value on Bitcoin and lets you build all these other applications on it, right? Taking, people's, denying that humanity has some greed inside of it and wants that opportunity to make a lot of money and, have fun and all that stuff, just doesn't work, right? That's, you end up with, socialism on one end where nobody wants to do anything and everybody believes that you're just doing things out of the goodness of your heart. No, having that as a gambling network brings value to the system, in my opinion, right? And that's actually something to embrace because it lets you build on top of it, right?
Yeah. This hasn't been talked about enough because speculation is okay. And it's important just to acknowledge that that's what some humans like to do, or part of everyone likes to do. Yeah. And so acknowledge it and allow it to happen. And also admit that it's a huge part of adoption and eyeballs and everything that'll help the ecosystem grow. Exactly. I think it's super important to do that. Or as opposed to the Puritan approach, I call it Puritan because that's the way America started, with a bunch of Puritans, where they go over and they think, oh, we're not allowed to do the bad stuff and we try to live our life by all being always good. It's just not realistic. And that behavior comes out some other way anyways. So It's an important thing to say. We see it with meme coins. With Pump Fun, that's like a fair launch, right? Where everyone gets the same opportunity to make money, and there's not like early investors or VC people. It's like a way where
you can choose. You can choose to actually pre-mint it and launch it, or buy into it as a developer in the Pump.Fun parlance. Our platform is the same. You decide what you want to do. It's not even our platform; it's a protocol. You decide what you want to do and launch it the way you do. Fair launch projects tend to attract more people participating because it's fair and they realize that, right? Yeah. It's people playing together. While if you're not doing it as a fair launch, I think you have to have a real narrative and reason why you're building this token and more to offer than just the community gambling aspect of it.
Okay, why 42 million tokens?
Two reasons: because it's double what Bitcoin is, and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, everybody knows 42 is a special number, and it just made sense.
Isn't it the answer to what is the meaning of life?
Exactly.
I mean, there's nothing else you need to know.
Yeah.
Right? 42.
Exactly.
Any other aspects of your tokenomics or the way you've structured this that you kind of want to highlight that makes Defi.Gold different?
Yeah, it's really you have a chance of owning a piece of the network. It's a very fair launch. You're liquid almost immediately after the launch, 50% immediately after the IDO, and 50% 2 months later. The team's tokens are all locked, so we can't sell for 2 years, and it's fair in that sense, and it's something that's owned by the community. It's a commons.
Let's talk about that massive unlock, because this was a huge discussion at Satoshi Roundtable. There was a very heated discussion by the pool on the last day, where founders showed up and VCs showed up and investors showed up. And we had a really amazing discussion about vesting periods and cliffs and whether founders should be locked in longer, and everybody threw in their 2 cents. And it was really interesting to hear. And since then, I've had a lot of discussions with people where typically what a founder would want to do is try to get the longest vesting schedule possible for any investor so they don't dump their coins. That was typically the narrative, and everybody would really try hard for that. Now, a lot of people are rethinking that. And there's a lot of reasons. But one of the problems is that can create massive long-term sell pressure on that token, which means no one wants to get involved when they know people are dumping it every quarter for the next 4 years. The other thing is that why isn't your business going to be good enough to survive an initial offering? And if people want to sell some and other people want to buy, shouldn't your model be robust enough? These are some really interesting narratives, and these are early days. I mean, this really is kind of the genesis of, tokenomics capitalism. You could look back to maybe early days of the free markets and stock markets to see how things happen. What are your thoughts on some of this? Because this is an ongoing discussion. We invest in a lot of companies, and I regularly have this conversation with founders, and I push back on long vesting schedules, and I say, yeah, okay, but the flip side is this and this. What are your thoughts? Because your schedule is super aggressive compared to most. Most people would be locked up for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Hell, I've seen some Bitcoin layer 2s. They want to lock you up for 36 months as an investor, not even a founder.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Why?
I think that's an artificial way of keeping the price up, and to me it's just you're manipulating a market which in theory should be the most open market out there, right? This isn't equity. This isn't the stock exchange, right? It's a protocol we're building. We want anybody who has weak hands to get out. Otherwise, you're going to have this slow spiral of death when they dump as soon as their stuff vests, right? Sooner the better that they get out. And every project that's been successful has kind of followed that model. Ethereum followed that model. You saw initially a big dip and very, very early on. And as it became more useful, people saw, hey, there's something here, right? We're letting everybody, this is so cheap right now to get in that you're at the very bottom anyways, right? And as it grows because it deserves to grow. And that's what really matters, right? If we have the first DEX in the Bitcoin space, and it's useful, and which it will be, we should be successful just based on that, right? That's what should be driving the price increase. Chainlink is another good example. They had a very aggressive launch and liquidity event, and they did great. So every successful project is successful because of its merits. We're not here to make money and artificially pump a market or any of that. We don't want to sell our tokens. We're locked in. And, for everybody else who's participating in this commons, if you don't believe in it, get out of it fast so somebody else picks it up who does. Right?
Well, such an important conversation we just had.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, anybody in the blockchain space should listen to this because it really puts out there some great arguments of why we got to evolve this. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people are hanging on to these old ways of doing things. But it's kind of a low energy, low level of thinking. It's like you said, like we want weekends to go. We want the best thing to win. We want to build this. We want more people coming in as possible. So you mentioned the DEX. How long do you think until you have a functioning DEX on Defi.Gold?
Oh, this summer. This summer we'll definitely have a DEX that works, and I'm very excited about that.
So if I have Bitcoin in my Lightning wallet, does it have to be, or a Bitcoin? Can I use a Trust wallet, or MetaMask soon is having Bitcoin? I'm told that's kind of cool because all my students have a MetaMask wallet. Will I be able to plug it in and lend out my Bitcoin in a secure way?
We don't have lending
Or
as
swap?
a feature yet. You can swap it out in a very secure way.
Okay.
Without any third party being involved. It's between you, the smart contracts, and the other party. Your counterparty is the party you're selling to.
Okay.
There's no middleman. There's no clearinghouse. Nothing of that nature. It's between you and them.
Okay.
Which is the most beautiful thing about crypto, in my opinion.
Right. That's what a DEX is, right?
That's
it's
what a DEX
decentralized
is.
exchange. Yeah. And so I'll be swapping my Bitcoin for cash or cash for Bitcoin, or I guess I won't be swapping my Bitcoin for Ethereum on those.
No, you won't be swapping it for Ethereum. There are other platforms that are allowing that. Like two of them are Thorchain and Chainflip, for example, and Sarai.swap allows you to do that with Monero. We're focused on assets on Bitcoin. So you'll be able to swap out, let's say Tether, on Bitcoin launches on RGB. You'll be able to swap that out with something on Runes, for example.
Okay.
And they all work with Bitcoin signatures. So Bitcoin has ways of signing for the thing. So you're both signing for it. And then the network decides if there is a disagreement, who should be getting what.
Okay. Without Tether, all I'll be able to do is say buy an ordinal or buy a room with Bitcoin and vice versa. Like
Exactly.
Those are the pairs that are kind of out there.
Yeah.
Okay. How soon do you think you'll have Tether or a stable coin? Because that's huge.
It's huge. Right now, the largest Lightning Network node is actually a little exchange for Taproot assets. And because it's massive in Asia, particularly China. And if they're always ahead of the curve by a year or two when it comes to, the behavior of the audience, right? Of how they're buying, what they're buying. So if you look at Asia right now, you're already seeing that it's becoming tremendously popular within a sub-niche of crypto. And if that continues in the West, I mean, everything will be there. So
have they always been a year ahead? If you track this all the way back to 2021 to 18 to 15, they really were embracing it early.
Yeah. I mean, the technology was developed mostly where I'm from, Canada, the UK right here and the States. But as far as adoption goes, it's always really been Asia who's really adopted this and, turned it into the real thing that you see with all these users who actually have put value on these assets.
I think Bitcoin's been banned in China 4 or 5 different times.
It has.
And there's a great graph because it goes up in price every time it is.
Every time. Yeah.
How is that still a hotbed of innovation when they keep banning it there?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people there want, to safeguard their capital, right? They're scared of inflation. They're scared of what's happening with real estate. They're, in a society that's very controlled. They want to have access to the outside world. And for them, and it's a culture that has an element of gambling as being very popular, right? So when you put all those things together, crypto is a perfect medium for all of that, right? Okay. So it's something that they've really adopted, and what they do, you almost see this all the time, that what gets popular there does get popular everywhere else, because people are people at the end of the day. Things aren't so hot here in Europe either, right? I mean, with people's sentiments, people like to have capital and the ability of, the very select few who are at the very top of the totem pole to move their money around and manage their finances themselves and have access to financial products that are beyond their means, right? And crypto and DeFi allow you to do that.
I met a Chinese woman in Dubai when I was there recently, and she worked with one of the exchanges, and we were talking about, business and how they were doing and maybe listing tokens, et cetera. And she said to me, Brian, gambling's in our culture. And I never heard that said before, and it really hit me. And I've been thinking about it more and meditating on that fact. Mm-hmm. And no one's ever said what you just said, whereas look east because it's coming west. I've never actually heard anybody say that. What I've always said about tech is when I started London Real and I was telling people I had a podcast, nobody in the UK knew what the hell I was talking about, because we're usually 5 years behind America when it comes to tech embracing.
Yeah.
But I'd never heard of this kind of, so it's like coming from America and coming from China, or at least in Bitcoin, the blockchain space. I never heard anyone talk about that.
I think it's broader than that, right? I think even culturally, people our age, when we were kids, I mean, North America was where culture was really created and went to the rest of the world. But even that's changing today, right? You're seeing the East. A lot of culture is actually going from the East to the West now in general, right? Yeah. You see clothing, you see, music, whatnot, K-pop, and it's just much wider than that. Look at what's happening in Nigeria. Look in China, right? They're becoming real centers of culture, really, and really exporting their culture, right? Which is very different from when you and I were kids, and it's the new reality.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of that, and definitely in the crypto space, Asia is a much bigger exporter of culture, sentiments, and whatnot than the West is, in my opinion, right now.
Very much so. I mean, I went to Token in Singapore last year, and we were in a pretty brutal, grueling, nasty crypto winter. There was no signs we were coming out anytime soon. This conference was sold out, 10,000 people, and it was like a bull market there. It was nuts. And nobody there got the memo that we were in some type of a crypto recession. They were going full bore. Yeah. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like when I go back in 3 months. There's so much development over there. We do a bunch of investments with Animoca, which has over 500 Web3 games out there. And so it's just, they are leading in this space
Yeah.
because America's dropped the ball, and I will talk about that shortly from you.
Vietnam has become a center of the video game industry. There's so many great titles, even outside of the blockchain space, that are starting up there. The whole esports phenomena, which I was involved with, Asia's really the center of it too, right? So you're seeing a lot coming out of those places, and that's where I look to see what the next trend will be.
Okay, that's super helpful. Yeah. And when I was in Singapore, I was out a few nights at some of the parties, and people were breaking down all the local countries and what they were doing. Mm-hmm. So they were like, Vietnam's doing this. Some of your partners, Defi.Gold, are based in Thailand, right? Is doing this. What are they doing in Malaysia? What are they doing in the Philippines? What are they doing in Hong Kong? What are they doing in some parts of China, if anything? Yeah. Japan, again, always. It's interesting. You mentioned when we were kids, if you think about the video games we were playing were actually developed in Japan.
That's true. That's true.
That was an early indication of, Mario and all the Nintendo stuff going on. Yeah. So it's, I'm so glad I forced myself to go to Singapore last year because I just knew I needed to go. It's a long flight, but it opened my eyes to what a huge part of this market is. Yeah. Now, back to why we got on this was that you mentioned there's a node or something on the Lightning Network that's associated with a stable coin or a potential stable coin that's getting a ton of activity over there.
With an exchange, with a marketplace for these assets on Bitcoin. Okay.
Will Tether be the first stable coin on the Bitcoin network,
I believe? Well, so Tether is the one that I can speak about. But, there's others that I'm sure will come that I can't speak about for non-disclosure reasons.
Okay. Is anyone else out there close to doing what you're doing? Honestly, is there competition in what you're doing?
No, because everybody else is focused on their own tribe, right? So, there's people who are building similar technologies to us for runes, for example, for, RGB, for Taproot assets, but they're all very much competing with each other, and none of them are embracing all of it. While we're saying, we don't care about you guys, we care about the audience and what people want. And we're going to build it so that all these assets are tradable against each other, because that's what that audience cares about. We're not care about your maximalism or what you believe in. The market will determine what actually works and doesn't work at the end of the day. What we care about is what the audience wants, what traders want, and they want all of these things actually.
Okay. Why'd you call it Defi.Gold?
Defi.Gold because it's the future of DeFi in my opinion. It's golden. Plus, I had the domain for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the gold standard.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's it been like building this? Do you have a big team? Is it challenging? Is there more work to be done? What does it look like for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. You don't need a big team to do this. What you need is people that are really, really smart, right? So, right now in the Ethereum space, that's not the case because people have already built so much infrastructure under it. You actually need a big team to build a cool game or something like that because you're taking various components and stitching it up, and it's just man hours. So having 1,000 man hours is a lot, right? And you can really get ahead there because again, you're just stitching up components. In the Bitcoin space, that's not the case. You need people that actually understand the cryptography, the underlying technology, because we're actually one of the people and one of the very first people that are actually building those frameworks and components that other people will use. So we have some of the smartest people in the blockchain space on our team, people that I've known since, around 2011, who helped, create all that infrastructure for, projects like EOS or, Ethereum, and they're now building it for Bitcoin. So that's what we're doing.
It's interesting because I know a few people that are trying to develop in the same space, and I've heard the same thing from them. And I'm like, how's it going? How's it going when you're building your DEX or your marketplace? And they're like, Brian, this is not like Ethereum. You can't just go and clip some code that someone wrote to do X, Y, and Z. You can't go hire a developer that's been doing this for years. Yeah. Like what we're doing has never been done before. So you can't, like you said, just jump on and use a bunch of previous technology to scale your niche in that. I mean, this really is new, cutting edge stuff.
You can chat GPT most of the projects that are being launched on Ethereum today. You can't do it here because that knowledge just isn't out there yet. We're the ones creating it.
Okay. Wild. What's the roadmap like for the next 6 months? I think you're doing like kind of token launch. And then like what is your kind of plan for the rest of the year?
Before the token launch, we're going to launch the NFT marketplace because it's just the most ready one. And the launchpad will come soon after that. So in the next couple of months, we'll have the launchpad. End of this month, we should actually have the NFT marketplace launched. And the IDO is set for this summer as well. And the swap exchange, late summer, we should have it as well.
The swap exchange is where I'll be able to trade in between pieces.
Yeah, that's going to be like Uniswap for, the Bitcoin space.
Okay. And hopefully there'll be a stable coin on the Bitcoin network to use.
We're betting on it. Yeah.
Okay. That will change everything.
It will change everything.
But even without it, I can go in and exchange Bitcoin for runes and for ordinals and things like that. So it'll have some functionality.
So on our roadmap, I mentioned that there is cross-chain DEXs being built. And to me, that's an amazing advancement. Things like, Thorchain and Chainflip. We are looking at potentially integrating those in as well. So you can actually trade even Ethereum against these assets, right? And, having that kind of market is really interesting, I think.
Okay. Earlier this year, we saw the Bitcoin ETF approved after a very long time. It started off kind of slow, but I guess now it's the most successful ETF in history. Massive flows have gone in there. What do you make of that? And there's still a lot of people that haven't jumped into that. I think all the sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East, the last time I checked, have not jumped in, and that's a lot of money. How important is that when it comes to what you're doing? Does this ultimately bring money into the system, and does that money ultimately need a DEX like yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's certainly going to bring the price of Bitcoin up. It's a finite, there's a finite supply of Bitcoin, and the more people gobble it up like that, and the more demand there is, it's going to go up. I don't like speculating on where that's going to go, but it's going to be very significant, obviously. And Bitcoin right now is the only ETF that exists. I believe others are coming very soon. We know that actually for a fact, obviously. Ethereum will have one. Chances are Solana will one day, and maybe even XRP. All these things are great. And the more, as the price goes up, people will want to see other assets they can buy, and they'll have some Bitcoin in their wallet. It'll bring their interest up to actually buy the asset itself. And they'll want to trade it with other things because, again, it's an opportunity for them to make a lot more, right? The beta is much higher when you're buying, in other assets that's correlated with Bitcoin, right? And again, we're betting on that. There's going to be, stable coins. So some people will want Tether. This is a place where they can trade it, and it's frictionless, right? It's not like setting up an account, in the US with Coinbase, for example. They're just doing it on their own and trading it with somebody else, completely frictionless. So all of that is good for the ecosystem, in my opinion.
Okay. Defi.Gold, Fi is finance. Mm-hmm. When will I be able to get yield on my Bitcoin on your platform or in general?
So
that's a big
It's
step.
big, yeah. So in Q4, we're launching a network that it's an Oracle network and a storage network for Bitcoin. Because earlier I mentioned that Bitcoin scripts will still have a deficiency in that they won't be able to reference previous transactions. It can act like a database still. We're creating a network that lets Bitcoin, that gives you a decentralized database that Bitcoin scripts can access. And they do this by a method called discrete log contracts. And it's also an Oracle where people can, provide information to Bitcoin to use that's verified and whatnot, and that it's gone through a decentralized verification process. When that network is live, D-Gold will be the native token of that coin. And you won't be earning yield on, as more D-Gold. You'll actually be earning yield in Bitcoin, which is great, right? And again, that's completely decentralized. It's run by the community, not us. We're just the developers of that.
And is that really kind of the holy grail? I mean, you have this massive asset that's going to get bigger, but right now there's no yield opportunities on the chain itself. There's not much of a yield curve on Bitcoin, but with all of these investors and TradFi players and funds from around the world coming in, I mean, they live for yield. Mm-hmm. They only understand yield. I've worked in banking for a long time. Is that really the holy grail, or a huge missing piece that will bring a lot of interest?
I think, this kind of yield is a lot more important than what you're seeing. These circular yield, projects can turn into massive Ponzi schemes where you're just, earning more of the same token that you're staking, right, and you have no idea why you're staking it, really, right? Yeah. Here, you're earning Bitcoin that people are using on the Defi.Gold exchange and also for the Oracle service. People are paying for the service through a network. It's not a company, it's a network. And they're, the people that participate.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.